Hello, and welcome back to the Sync Society podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Cobb, and today we have a very fun topic. It is all about when you're feeling those moments of Sunday scaries or existential dread or just that something's got to give. If you've had that moment of looking at your calendar for the week, going through all of your obligations and events and the things that you need to tack off your list, or when you've had that moment where you feel like you finally got on top of everything and realize the laundry hamper's full again. It is not uncommon to feel overwhelmed. Each one of us has so many different areas of our lives that we're constantly progressing and building. And I think a huge part of that, especially as ambitious women, is also holding ourselves to a certain standard of perfectionism or not being okay with good enough. And I'm excited to share a little bit more about how we can tackle this head on. And in a simple 20-minute exercise, you can learn a little bit more about your life and what you can do to take at least one step to feel better and make some changes that can help life feel a little bit more sustainable and help you feel more grounded, especially from season to season. Years and years ago, I had a moment where I was so overwhelmed at work and throughout my life. I just felt like something has to give, but I can't even comprehend all of the things that are on my own to-do list. And so what I did is I got out a sheet of paper. I just wrote down every single thing that was going on in my brain, from what was going on at work and all the different obligations there. So, not just the full time, but what else is under that bucket, looking at some of the commitments I had socially, other ways I was leaning into personal development, friendships, chores, finances, whatever it looks like, and just wrote every single thing I had going on in my life down. Then I took a look at it. And first of all, I was able to see that there was a lot, unsurprisingly, on that list. And also that, at least for a season, there was something I could do about some of them. You take a look and, I realized that I can't quit my full-time job. I mean, I guess I could have theoretically, but, there are certain things that are more challenging to change or take a step back from. However, there are certain items that maybe I could tweak or tone down, and other areas where I was seeing maybe these are things that consistently drain me, and maybe it really is time for a change. And thus was born what I called the life audit. And it's actually something that I found it so beneficial to do and go through myself that I would recommend to different folks that I mentored when I was in the consulting space. But this is something that, as I've been thinking about the Sync Society and some of the more tangible, practical tools and frameworks that we can move through together, I felt like this is a perfect opportunity because it's all about aligning our ambition, building a life that's sustainable for the high performing woman, and a really great way for us to kick off this community and get a better grasp of what this is all about is to go through this exercise together. And I have rebranded it a little bit to be called the Overflow Audit. In the show notes, I will include a link where you can actually, I'm showing it if you're looking on camera, but I actually have printed out a worksheet where we can go through this together. It is a simple 20-minute exercise, 3 steps, and it's for that moment when you are feeling overwhelmed. And it's just like I talked about. So if you want to grab a paper and a pen, this is nothing novel or crazy. So you can definitely just do it by grabbing your own sheet of paper. You can do it on your notes app in your phone as well, but there's just something about that tangible and being able to see it, writing it out, that's a little more analog, that can be beneficial. So definitely, if you need a moment, just feel free to pause me, get out your paper and pen, and I will walk you through the various steps. And I'm also going to do it alongside you. The first step of the overflow audit is to dump it all out. So what we have on the worksheet, but I can just voice it over for you if you'd like to write it down yourself, different categories. So you don't have to fill these all out, but this is just a way to add some structure around the different categories that you might want to think about when completing this. So there's work. Are there certain projects or deadlines that you're working up against right now? I mentioned in our kickoff episode that during my time in consulting, there was the full-time gig, and then there were business developments and proposals, internal initiatives. So there were a lot of different layers to the bucket of work. So writing all of those sorts of things down. We also have health and body. So this is everything related to workouts, sleep, different appointments you may have just for your overall well-being. This one, especially if you're dealing with a chronic condition or just in a season where you're really focused on your overall health, could be something that's definitely causing some demand and time strain. Relationships. So this one could be any number of things when it comes to relationships. This could look like keeping up with family if you're a long distance daughter, such as myself. This could be dating relationships, maybe different family obligations, social life, hangouts, those sorts of things. And just generally, you can categorize them more generally or more specifically, just depending on the types of rhythms that you have in your life. Personal growth. So, this one is maybe you have a goal for yourself to read a book every month, or you're going through some kind of course. Home and admin, this is where I would probably put my dreaded laundry, but any other errands, finances, chores, logistics, and then side projects. So for me, well, I don't want to spoil it too soon, but I would put something like the Sing Society under that category simply because that is not my full-time job, but something that I'm obviously putting a lot of time into. If you have any side hustle, creative projects, volunteering, so I will give you some time. We will come back together and review as we head into the next step. Once you have taken the time to go through your overflow audit, just take a look and read through everything that you've written down. Make sure you feel like it's all encompassing. If you forget a thing or two, that's okay. I mean, it definitely comes up over time. There aren't any hard and fast rules as far as what must come on here, but really just what's taking up space in your brain. So the next thing that we do is we sort the load. So take a look at everything that you wrote down and look at if it's drain, neutral, or life-giving. If it's draining, do an X next to it. If you also have color-coded pens or anything like that, this can be fun to do drain and red. And then neutral, just do a dash next to it. So this is just something that it exists. It's neither here nor there. And then a star next to life-giving. This is something that fills you up, makes you feel more like yourself or that you're really excited about. And let's take a few minutes to do that, and then we will regroup. Feel free to pause me. Once you've taken the time to take a look at everything and add whether it's draining, neutral, or life-giving, it can be a really enlightening moment. Something that I noticed when going through mine is actually just how many things I did have a star next to, meaning that a lot of things that are in across all of these buckets are life-giving to me. So I can provide a few examples. There are a couple cool things I'm doing at work as kind of a side project related to agentic AI. And as I'm building that out and growing my skills, I'm actually finding it pretty exciting. So while it is taking up time in my life, it's cool and exciting to me. Also, every single thing under health and body has a star next to it right now, meaning that the things that I'm doing to take care of myself, I'm comfortable with the things that I need to do. Nothing's feeling out of alignment there. Relationships is interesting. All of these things are life-giving to me. However, there may be times I need to scale back different social hangouts and commitments. So sometimes just because something is life-giving doesn't necessarily mean that you need to do it all the time. Too much of a good thing, perhaps, but boundaries are also helpful when you know what you need in that given season. Personal growth, almost everything under there was also life-giving of the different hobbies, habits, and goals that I have right now. But I have noticed in the season of launching the Sync Society that I haven't had as much time to do floral design, plan travel, read books, some of those things that I do really enjoy, but have to sometimes take the back burner. Home and admin was my category with the most amount of neutral and negative. Laundry, cleaning, meal prep. It can be challenging to be an independent woman who does it all herself. And I would much rather spend time working out or getting more sleep or spending time with friends, family, or building the Synced Society than I would doing my laundry, meal prepping, or cleaning my apartment. So something to consider. And then side projects, I kind of wrote out many different facets and dimensions of the Synced Society. So just recently was leading up to the launch, and we're very much so in the early days. The launch party is coming up at the time of recording this. So that's me coordinating with all the different brand vendors, making sure I have all of the materials I need, facilitating the event. So that is definitely taking up a lot of time and brain space. And then everything related to the podcast itself, from developing talking points, scheduling different guests in my own recordings, actually completing the recordings, editing, and posting. I won't get into all the minutia of that, but some of those things are more life-giving than others. As a solopreneur, if you will, these are things that maybe at a certain point I can outsource as the business grows, but I know right now it's all on me. And that's something that, because I'm so passionate about this, I'm willing to take on things that aren't always my strength or aren't things that always come naturally to me, but areas where, one, I can grow, and two, I can certainly outsource in the future. Running that similar exercise with yourself to kind of take a look at, are there certain categories that feel more draining than others to you? Are there ways that you could even tweak something that would make it more life-giving? So those are just more general questions, but what we actually want to do now is get more tactical. So now we've done some reflecting, we've dumped it all out, we've taken a look and sorted through some of the areas that feel more or less life-giving to us, draining, or neutral. For every item that is an X, I want you to take a look at, is this a non-negotiable? So something like health or your full-time job is something you can't really get rid of, but the way that you go about your health or about your job could change. Is it something you can scale back for a season, or maybe is it something that you need to let go of completely? And this is a very critical inflection point, I would say, if you're seeing that something that's a part of the natural rhythm and the cadence of your life, like your full-time job, like different volunteering or involvements you have, maybe even something like working out is just absolutely draining to you right now and you're not enjoying it. I want to speak to three women specifically. One of the women I want to speak to is the woman who had almost every single thing on her list as life-giving or neutral, but still is sitting here feeling like, I'm so overwhelmed right now. And I want you to take a step back and think about the fact that you cannot be everything to everyone all the time, and you cannot be everywhere doing everything. And that sounds like common sense, but sometimes you just need to hear it, to have the permission to say, just because these 20 things in my life, I feel like I'm getting ROI on them, I feel like I do enjoy these things. If you are running around at the expense of never sleeping or never feeling like you have a moment to yourself, those things are really important. And so I would encourage you to do another scan and take another pass at evaluating, and maybe just doing kind of an above the line, below the line of, if you had to remove certain things or if you had to scale back certain things for this season to bring in even more of the true goodness, let's do that. Or what are some of the things that you're sacrificing that you may not realize? So that is one woman who I wanted to talk to. Another woman I wanted to speak to is someone who feels like they saw quite a few X's that were maybe surprising, or there's not a lot of things in your life right now that feel life-giving. And what I wanted to say to you is, this is temporary, and this is a really powerful moment and inflection point for you, where you have the opportunity to shape a life that does feel good to you, that does build you up, and that is life-giving. And I would encourage you to think about, what are the things I do where I feel the most myself? What did I love to do as a child? What are my strengths? Who am I when expectations of everyone around me are lifted and all I have is myself? Just some introspective questions to really think about, have I designed and built a life that isn't even for me? That's heavy. So I want to acknowledge that and say that, one, what a moment. I'm excited for you because everything is about to change. And two, you are completely in the right place, because many of us have been there, and this is not a unique experience. So I wanted to encourage you in that. The last woman that I wanted to speak to is the one who had an X next to something that she cannot change right now. And this could be something like a job when it feels like there are no prospects out there and no changes that really can be made. This could be a chronic health condition where you're going through an extreme flare up or crisis. So the appointments or the surgery or the running around to a million doctors is something that it is on your list, it is draining, and you cannot change it right now. This is a season and it is a hard season. I want you to hear that and feel validated that this this could feel to you like a cutesy little exercise that doesn't change your circumstance or your situation. I want to affirm that I want to affirm how real that is. I personally have a faith and I believe that any of the challenging seasons that we go through are not for nothing. And you are either growing in character or moving towards something that we may not always see earthside why certain things are happening. But I bet you've experienced something in your life where you're able to look back and understand why. And I also just want you to know that this community is here for you if you are in a dark season or one that you feel like you have nowhere to turn, you can't make a change. My biggest takeaways and advice for that woman is lean into your people. If you have a faith, lean into your faith. And lastly, to focus on what you can change and can control. And so it could be as simple as I'm in an extremely tough season, but I'm going to make sure I have flowers on my coffee table every week because that brings me joy and that's something I can do. Or I'm feeling underwater, running from appointment to appointment to appointment, but I'm going to keep a standing Friday night dinner with my best friend and we can just gab about everything. As I'm speaking this right now, I'm thinking of people in my own life, and I'm also thinking of seasons in my own life that felt this way. And I know how real it is and how it can seem like there's toxic positivity of, better things are on the horizon or everything happens for a reason. And some of these just classic phrases that can seem to not hold a lot of weight in those seasons. And maybe this exercise feels empty because you feel like there's nothing you can do. But I want to encourage you that there are at least some small things that you can do even in the most challenging of seasons. Okay, deep breath, realign. I always want to keep in mind I am speaking to like-minded women, but also multifaceted women who are in a variety of seasons. It was really important to me to acknowledge those specific situations. The last thing that we can do is realign and reset. And the most helpful thing about this is it's not about overhauling your entire life as a result of this exercise, but taking one thing and taking action. I'll provide a couple of examples of what I've done in the past and share an example from what I just did with this exercise. When I was in consulting, I had a very stacked plate and to the point where it was overflowing. I was leading a community group at my church at the time. I was on a full-time demanding project. I was running different pursuits and proposals where I was the point person. I was running 2 or 3 internal initiatives, managing a chronic condition. And because there was so much under the work category, that felt like an area that I could maybe make some tweaks. And so what I did is I actually stepped away from one of the internal initiatives that I was a part of. That was hard for me because it was genuinely a passion of mine. At that stage in my life, it had to go. And I knew if I walk away, I can come back later on and pick this back up. This step that I'm taking here will allow me to show up more fully and presently everywhere else. So that was one that I made. Another example is for me, I knew in this season of building the Synced Society and also, I have quite a lengthy commute, which includes an early morning, and that makes it really challenging for me to be fully present and get the sleep and restoration that I need earlier in the week. And so I actually made a boundary heading into 2026 that I would make no social plans Monday through Wednesday. And that was a little bit challenging because if that's where schedules aligned, of course, I was technically free, but that didn't mean that I was available. And that was a clear distinction that I need to make with myself so that I had time to rest and recuperate and focus on building my business, which was an area that I, of course, wanted to focus on and make sure I was giving the appropriate energy. And lastly, something else in this season that was a little bit harder for me that came by happenstance, not a formal decision. I really like to work out almost every single day and at least move my body in some capacity. I know it's so good for you. It makes me feel good and just sets the tone for the day. And I was noticing that I was having a hard time getting enough sleep, and thus it made it hard to wake up and work out. And so slowly but surely, I kind of started working out maybe 3 times a week as opposed to 5 to 6 that I typically like to do. And one of my beautiful, amazing, incredible friends, Victoria, who we met in episode 2, said to me, that might just be where I'm at this season because I am giving so much energy towards building my business that I maybe don't have the energy to work out as much as I would like to. And that's just for a season. So don't be afraid to make those tweaks or changes that will serve you in the long run. So the last step is step 3, which is realign and reset. And like I said, it's not about fixing everything at once, but making one decision that will ensure that we are not back in the same place 2 months from now with no changes. Because if we want to make changes that are sustainable, let's start one by one. If you are doing this on your phone or your own paper, write down my one thing is blank and just write in what your one thing is for this season or this time or your takeaway here. Specifically, I will blank. I will do this by blank. So I am going to also write down mine and I will read it out to you after I complete that step. Something for me in this season of freshly launching the Sync Society, building a business, working through all of that. One of the things that's challenging for me and that was draining for me is meal prep. I don't have as much time to focus on that right now. So I am giving myself permission to make a change there. Specifically, I will get healthy takeout options and I will do this by identifying no-brainer places that work for me and having go-to orders. So happy to share my sweet green order with you guys because back when I was doing Whole30, I built a custom bowl and it is delicious. It is gluten-free, dairy-free. So I think for me in this season, I am just going to allow myself permission to get more takeout than I typically would like to, but I am in an abnormal and unusual season. And so that's something that I am going to allow for myself. If you completed this exercise and would like to share the one thing that you're doing, you can comment on the episode and I would love to see which changes you're committing to. I also think there's something about the accountability of writing it out and sharing with someone that reminds you to take that step and come back to it. So would love to hear a little bit more. Like I said, if maybe you just are listening to this episode on the go and want to complete the Overflow audit after the fact, you can download the worksheet and print it, or you could complete this exercise by grabbing a couple sheets of paper of your own or doing it in your notes app. If you completed this exercise, you already know something about your life that you didn't know 20 minutes ago. And that is really powerful. So I want to encourage you whenever you're feeling the Sunday scaries looming in, or like you just can't catch a break, or that something has to give, because we've all been there and we all get there, that you can take a moment and you now have this tool, whether you print out a worksheet or simply grab a piece of paper, the ability to run through this exercise, get it out of your brain and down on a piece of paper and sort and comb through it is just so powerful. So I want to thank you for running through this exercise with me today. And I'm hoping that we're all walking away with our one thing. And I'll do mine if you do yours. I'll see you next time.